Part of my role as your city auditor, sometimes things come to my attention when there's been an omission. Sometimes those omissions for political reasons are intentional. Sometimes they're accidental. Sometimes they're just omissions. But in regards to the last meeting last year, when council passed the legislation authorizing not only the acceptance of the properties in the Convention area, but more importantly, spending the $1.5 million to begin architectural work, there has been a significant change that I think you need to be aware of. I did check the records today to make sure at this point in time there's been no POs or vouchers entered into your financial system, so in theory no work should has processed. But one of the parcels the county apparently did not have control of. That was parcel number 580000243250. It's on Clinton Street. Is immediately north of the Rainick property that's being worked on. That property went to a forfeiture sale last week, was bought by a private group, and that private group has it's in an LLC now. And I don't know what they intend to do with it, but it may or may not affect your ability to move forward in a manner that you're under the assumption you're going to be able to move forward on. So I want to make sure you're aware of that. That has been recorded at the county auditor's office, and I pulled a copy of that courthouse sheet today just to make sure, especially when we verify that we didn't have any POs against that. And Mr. Wobser, I felt as chair of appropriations, I know you championed the consideration at that meeting of going ahead and moving forward with spending some of that money and getting this thing going. But I wanted to make sure you were aware of that in case council wanted to reconsider that, or at least be aware of it before that money was spent.
Thank you, Mr. Auditor. I appreciate that. I think we're still good to go forward with that. My understanding is that property is indeed in the floodplain. Is that correct?
Never.
It is my understanding, yes. I also was made aware that Tom Ross purchased that property at auction last week. So it's very unfortunate that the county wasn't able to secure it as they had originally planned, and as I was under the impression that they were going to do. However, we will simply be able to work around that property. We're obviously just entering the design process. There will be limited to no development that would be possible on that, but he had the right to purchase it. I think it's unfortunate that there wasn't better communication between the county and city so that we could ensure that that moved forward as had originally been discussed, but we will work with it, and I don't think that it impacts our property.
Are we sure there's no other properties that could end up getting purchased by somebody else? Because you confidently told us that we had control of all the properties. So if that's not true, should we be deappropriating those dollars and taking it back to appropriations to figure out what's going on? I mean, it seems like it's now this, and then we have the environmental issue at Rainick, and now we have some other minor environmentals that you guys went over just in the last couple weeks, but you were confident and we trusted that.
So no, I validated with Steve Wilson, the project manager, unfortunately with this property. So it was a state forfeited property that then went to the county auditor. I had been informed by the county prosecutors that it was their intention to have that property transferred to the commissioners to be a part of the project. For whatever reason, that did not occur. So I also am obviously very disappointed. I had also been led to believe that the property was secured. As we look at the rest of the area, no, the other properties have been secured or we're already in negotiations and have good faith agreements with the properties that have not yet been transferred. So I'm not concerned about any other items, and I would just again reiterate what was shared at the last meeting and at the appropriations meeting, that the environmental issues that were brought up are all going to be addressed as part of the benching project, which is what we should be doing regardless of what we invest into the downtown area. And again, the contract that is being entered into with Strand is an up contract for work actually provided with an out clause. So as previously stated, regardless, I think we've all agreed that some level of investment needs to be made in this area, given it is in our downtown. It needs to be improved, and we need to move forward with the designs to determine those specific elements and work with the public on what specific elements they want to see and which are going to be engineeringly feasible. And so I believe that the money that was appropriated still makes sense for the betterment of our communities.
I may have misunderstood what you just said. Are there other properties that are not secured yet, or we're still waiting to secure? Whether, when I say we, is that city or county? I guess that's just what I just heard, so.
Yep, there is one property that the county is still negotiating on, but it's the Huntington parking lot parcel. So we're just working with them to determine the specific locations, but we have their word that they're gonna work with us. It's just determining the terms of the transfer.
Mr. DeArmond.
Is this property north of Clinton Street or south?
The one that was acquired by Mr. Ross?
Yes.
It's south of Clinton Court. So when you're looking at the downtown recreation area footprint that we've been going from Main Street to the east to the railroad tracks, and then from Clinton Court down where the kind of the park path entrance occurs, I think it's either the first or second property in from that. So we would be able to butt up against the kind of parking improvements along the roadway, but it wouldn't cause any significant issues.
Mr. Miller.
Mayor, if I may, how large is that? Is this like a residential lot, small lot, 30, 40 feet wide?
I believe it's 40 to 50 feet wide and about 150 feet deep, so not a significant place
And-
when you're looking at 19 acres of property.
Understand. And are you confident that we'll be successful in getting the piece of property, or do we have to go through eminent domain, or?
From Mr. Ross?
Yes.
I don't intend to negotiate with him to get that property. We'll do our project around that.
Okay. What about an eminent domain?
That would, I don't think that unless that it provide, it's my understanding that that parcel will not provide any significant modification to the flood benefit that we would receive from the benching, and therefore I wouldn't recommend moving forward with eminent domain. Additionally, I think that that is probably part of, that would cause significant delays in the project, both from a flood mitigation standpoint and any potential work we would want to do that, so I don't think that that would be in the best interest of the community.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cowell.
I was just going to add, from a design standpoint on that, if you would envision, that would almost be like on phase one where that kind of, it moves in and out of where our property was and stuff like that. It's going to change how the hydraulics go through there, but I mean, not to say anything about engineers. That's why you have engineers to design that kind of stuff there. It's just going to change how flow goes through there. They might have to change the slope or something like that on it, but they'll just have to look at the hydraulics. But it will be something that can be designed around.
We have all the confidence in you. Thank you.
I'm glad I'm not doing the hydraulics on that.
Mr. Sheehy.
So is the property on the perimeter, or is it surrounded? Is it like, here's the end of where we're doing our project and it's an outside parcel and there's nothing to the
No, it's
north, south, east, and west of it, or is it?
It's in the footprint. It's along Clinton Court though. So again, we can drop things kind of around it. Would be probably what we'll end up doing. But again, we'll just work through the design. But no, it's not necessarily on a roadway. It's, here, I'll give you. So here's Main Street. Here's Clinton Court. It's kind of like right in here.
So it's not benching, it's just for our design area.
It would have been benched to some degree because it would be lowered just a little bit below the road, but it's not anything significant where it's going to create a monumental impact on the hydraulics.
And it doesn't require us to be able, we don't have to access that property for anything.
And we would work through the design elements and shift accordingly.
My thanks to council for allowing that to slow down for us to complete the environmental. It was clear at two things at that last meeting. One, there is contamination throughout this area, and they intend to they won't remove all the contamination, and the public shouldn't think that they will. What they're going to do is they're going to remediate down to the level they need to be, and there has to be clean dirt 2 foot down, and I'm sure they're going to do things, or I hope they're going to do things to make sure that if there's erosion from the waterway or flooding or anything else, that we maintain that 2 foot buffer for the safety of the public. But I think that you folks allowing that process to slow down was key for us to getting to know this, because it was clear from Mr. Wilson in that meeting that he already has his specs done, and he was ready to move to bid. And now, because of that, and if we properly hire the fiduciary that the committee report says we need to hire, that those specs will be adjusted to account for the environmental issues and contaminants that were reported on through this process. So again, I thank you folks who are here and were part of slowing this down, taking the time so we can do a proper due diligence as part of this, and now move forward. We'll make sure that we protect the interest of the city as we move forward, and I'll make sure I do my part of that. So again, thank you.
So do we need to redo our engineering portion before we start doing our design portion? As far as you were talking about slope and for this.
Yeah, so I think you're talking about two different projects. So on the county or on the benching project, they're going to just have to look at their hydraulics, how that looks. And then the park project, it was just what was presented to you guys was conceptual of what could be in that area. Mainly where that area was a parking lot, so that's an easy thing that you can widen, move around or anything like this. Because of this, since this is a floodplain area, it can't be developed on anyway. So it's going to be most likely a grass area of some sort, or a green space of some sort within that area. But those are two different projects that you got to look at. One is they got to look at the hydraulics, make sure what they need to accomplish in phase 2 benching is being accomplished even with that property being there, which can still easily be done. It's just going to have to change how the flows go through there. And then as part of our design process with the downtown park project, that's where, okay, now we know that project's there. How do we, we're going to have to change our conceptual a little bit to make sure that we can, accommodate because that property's there now.
But that's what we've done already is what I was getting
No,
at.
that's
all going to be with
that's what the 1.5 that was approved is for engineering to do that work. So no engineering has been done for that yet. So that's why we need to get those 30% because now we know those identified areas.